All right, let's do this so I can eat lunch. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Coffee with Katie. Today's video is going to be a book review on For the Throne by Hannah Witten. I'm not necessarily trying to be spoilery for this review. I'm not going to be filtering my thoughts or words as much as I would be on a normal review, so just be aware of that. I do talk about this in my June wrap-up, so if you want to see me talk about this book with pretty much no spoilers, go check out that video. So first off, I gave this 3.5 stars. I did like this book, but not as much as I liked the first one, so let me get that. So the first one is For the Wolf, and then this one is For the Throne. These covers are absolutely stunning. I love the covers, and when you have the spines together, it's just perfect. I love it. But so the first book is For the Wolf, and this is the Wilderwood duology. In this one, you're obviously following Red, and I have a whole, I think, spoilery review of this book as well, when you get to see the Wilderwood come alive and everything like that. And at the ending, her and Eamon absorb the entire Wilderwood in both of them, so it's no longer like plaguing the land, and it severed the connection between the Wilderwood and the Shadowlands, so things can't keep coming up from the Shadowlands that they have to defeat. So they've eliminated that possibility, and they've took the Wilderwood inside both of them so that everything's safe and everything's good. So you pick up in book 2 because Neve, Red's sister, was trapped in the Shadowlands when the separation happened, when the connection was severed. Neve was sent to the Shadowlands and is trapped there. And so the whole thing is that Red is trying to get to her sister. From this book, you still get both of their perspectives, but it's more from Neve's perspective and what's going on there than Red's. And so I was very excited to start this book because you know you're going to get in the Shadowlands because that's how the first book ends. So you know it's going to pick up where you're going to be in the Shadowlands with Neve, and you're going to see everything going on with her and Solimir and how they're going to get back to the surface. And I was very excited to get the Shadowlands, and there were a lot of aspects of the Shadowlands that I really did enjoy. So everything is in grayscale, and it was very vivid and easy for me to picture that everything was in grayscale, and how Solimir's eyes have this like insanely bright blue that like is striking every time she looks at him, because everything else is blacks and grays and whites and grayscale and gloomy and cold, and then there's his eyes. And so I thought that was amazing how the scenes in the Shadowlands were written, because I could picture it. It was very immersive, and I could see his eyes and how beautiful they were and striking. And so I liked that the trees grow upside down. So it's like the roots are stretching into the air high above them, and then the trees are growing from like the tops out of the ground. I really liked the different things she did in the Shadowlands, like the trees being upside down and it being grayscale and there being these like terrifying creatures running around. But it's also weakening because the powers of the gods are weakening. And so there's like earthquakes happening randomly, and Solimir's like totally used to it, unfortunately. And so he can just like brace himself and handle it, and she's like being flung everywhere, which is kind of funny. So those parts of the Shadowlands were really cool to get. However, I feel like there were more parts of the Shadowlands. I really would have liked to explore more of the Shadowlands and get more of that world, and I felt like while she's in it for most of the book, you don't get as much as I would have liked. So her and Solimir are trying to figure out how to basically kill the kings, because the reason for the first book was that he wanted to bring the kings to the surface to then kill them, because they're like the gods and they're not great people. So he really wants to kill them. And he is kind of a god himself because of reasons. So he is using Neve to try to accomplish this task and believes that he needs her to do so. So the story picks up where they're in the Shadowlands. She's mad because he had basically possessed Eric, her friend, topside on the first book, and then she finds out at the end that it was him possessing him. So she feels betrayed. She feels like he did all of this to her and he tricked her and all of this, but she was also kind of developing feelings for him in the first book, and so she's conflicted because now she knows who it was that she was actually developing feelings for, and he's kind of this like snarky guy saying like it was very easy for you to be tricked and very easy for you to start feeling this way. But he's also like giving her boundaries and not pushing anything. So they're all together at this like place, and he kisses her to become her tie, which basically means that she can use this shadow magic if she touches him physically. So basically like skin to skin contact, however that happens, whether it's like this or something else, then she can tap into the magic and use it without being completely immersed in the Shadowlands, because it's very painful to use the magic, and it will also start changing you. It could like make you into a creature or something really terrifying, and she doesn't want that to happen. So he becomes her anchor, and so the only way she can use that shadow magic is to touch him. So they just kind of go on this journey where they're trying to find a doorway to open it to either get the king's topside or find a way to kill the gods and the kings in the Shadowlands. And so that's kind of the whole story, is you're following Neve and Solmir as they're trying to find these kings to kill them, essentially, which are gods. They're trying to find these gods to kill them, so they go to this lady that's like a spider lady. It was terrifying. Basically a spider type situation where she's like half spider, half human. Traumatized me. And they get this god bone knife where they can kill gods with it, and you can only kill a god with a god bone knife. And that's basically the whole story, is they're going through the Shadowlands trying to kill these gods, running into these really creepy situations. And then topside, Red is trying to get to her sister, Neve is trying to escape, and they're trying to figure out all of the politics of what's going on because Neve is supposed to be the queen. They're trying to pitch a story that she's ill while also trying to find a way to get to her. And so you see all of the friends and characters from the previous books trying to figure out this mystery and how they're going to get to her, and just going through and like tying up all the loose ends of like the priestesses, who's going to be ruling this monarchy, how to get into the Shadowlands, and how to like overturn this cycle that's been going on for so long. So I did like this book a lot, and it was a lot of fun. It's just not necessarily what I was expecting. I really preferred book 1 and how you get more of the Wilder Wood and how that plays a part of all of this. I feel like this leans into much more abstract, metaphorical, dream, nightmare-like sequences than it does like physical magic and things that are happening. There's a lot of like the characters having dreams and it having hidden meanings, having these like things happen in the Shadowlands that feel kind of like dreams but are actually happening, and like voices in your head of these gods speaking to you, killing these gods to get their power. That was more physical and kind of cool. One of the gods having this like corpse puppet, that still I could not figure out in my head what was necessarily going on, because it was so wild and like creepy Alice in Wonderland-esque. Like some of the stuff that was happening, I was like, I don't understand what's happening, but it's still creepy somehow. It felt kind of more like they were tapping into magical realism in this book than the first one, and I just wasn't the biggest fan of how it was shifting. And the feel of this book was very different. And she's like slowly falling for Solmir, even though he's evil. So there was that thing, but I liked it, but I feel like it wasn't as good as it could have been potentially. But you're still kind of rooting for them, right? So then they kind of resolve the things with the priestesses and figure out some mysteries that are going on and some betrayals that are going on. But it felt kind of all very secondary to the Shadowlands plot and almost unnecessary. It felt like that was just kind of, that piece of the plot was there to introduce a character so that that character could play a role at the end. And so they go through the Shadowlands, they kill like god after god after god to then absorb this power to end it all, basically. And so they finally do all this. They get topside, everybody, because the Shadowlands have like collapsed. And essentially they figure out that the only way to stop this cycle is for somebody to die and take this, I guess, separation away. So instead of it being Shadowlands and Wilderwood, for it to all merge into one thing, and for magic to be in the world again, instead of it being in these separate places where it's being corrupted and turning into something it wasn't supposed to be. So basically they figure out that one of them needs to die, somebody needs to die to release magic back into the world and for it to be balanced again. So okay, but I don't really like that premise, and it kind of seemed a little bit silly. And there's this scene, this is gonna be spoilery, so if you don't want any like real big spoilers, avoid this. There's this scene where Red and Neve and Eric, who we believe to be dead from the first book, are all in this dream-like sequence, I would say. And there are these 3 apples. One of them I think is gold, one of them is black, and one of them is red. I don't remember all the colors. And basically those apples represent their soul, and it's very like metaphorical and metaphysical and weird. And they've figured out that somebody has to die in order for balance to be restored. But then they decide, what if they just didn't sacrifice their souls? What if they took their souls away? What if they stripped themselves of their souls and that be a sacrifice? So they all pick this apple and they all get stripped of their souls. And then it goes into this whole thing that you as a person are not your soul. So you have a personality and you're still you without your soul. And it was just a really weird place that it went, and I really didn't care for it. So yeah, it gets into that weird spot that I didn't love. And then magic and balance is restored. So it was okay. It had a very different feel from the first one, and I just didn't like the direction that it went. But I still really enjoyed the story as a whole. And I did like getting more pieces of the story in this one, like the Shadowlands, the very, very end, like after the ending and the epilogue, like in the epilogue portion. Yes, so in the epilogue, I liked how the story wrapped up. In the epilogue, you still get 3 different perspectives. But Neve's perspective in the epilogue, I really liked. I thought that was a good way to end it. Maybe a little bit expected, but it was cute and I liked it. So overall, I thought this was good, but I did enjoy the first one more. I'm very curious to see what else this author comes out with, and I will absolutely keep reading her works. I know that her next book is going to be The Foxglove King, which is book 1 of The Nightshade Crown, and that there's a little like excerpt in this book that I haven't read yet, but that's supposed to come out next year, so I would be very curious to read that. I wanted to put my thoughts on this book, A, because it's a new release, and I really liked For the Wolf, and put up a review of that one, so I wanted to kind of get the rest of this up. I know this was very fast, rambling, spoilery chat, but just kind of wanted to give you my thoughts on this book if you've read it or if you're curious to read it. I'm sorry if I spoiled it for you, but it was fun. If you have read this duology, I would love to know your thoughts down below. Covers are just so pretty on these books. But yeah, so I just wanted to kind of give you my quick thoughts on this book and to just chat with you a little bit. But that is it for today's video. So please like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time. Stay safe and caffeinated. Bye.